Hey guys, Joe here. Today I have an interesting one for you. We're doing an overview of this little guy here, an EDC scalpel called the Sweeney from Glidr Co. Now Sweeney is obviously after Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of Fleet Street, but you've probably never heard of Glidr Co. before. They are a manufacturer in Australia that works on trainers for people who like balisongs and butterfly knives, want to do those tricks, but don't want to put themselves in the hospital for cutting a finger off. And they decided, we like our trainer business, we're doing well, people love them, why don't we come out with an actual cutting tool? And you would think, well, why wouldn't they just come out with a live edge balisong or butterfly knife? Why come out with an EDC scalpel? But you got to think about legality. I don't know about Australia's knife laws, but I know here in the United States, butterflies and balisongs are fairly heavily restricted, and there's a lot of competition in that market. And so they decided to go with something that's going to be universally legal. If you can carry a cutting tool, you can carry the Sweeney. And they fixed a lot of the problems we have with neck knives in the knife industry. It pretty much took all the complaints most people have and got rid of them. And so that is really cool. And it's coming in at a price point of $89 to $110, which I think is personally worth it for the kind of people that are going to be going for this kind of knife. And we'll talk about why as we go throughout the video. So with this, it is made in Australia. That's the first big complaint a lot of people have about neck knives is they're very cheaply made overseas in places like China, Vietnam, and Taiwan. They're not necessarily always ethical labor and ethical laws involving human rights violations. And so they aren't really going to gravitate towards these knives purely from that standpoint. So the fact that this is a neck knife made in Australia, it gives an option to those people who want a neck knife but aren't willing to support that kind of a country. And so I totally understand that philosophy. That's a great option. Another thing is going to be the size. Now, if we get the Kydex sheath out of here for a second, this is a smaller knife. I've got large bordering on extra large hands, and it disappears, but I can still get a 4-fingered grip. What it does is it provides you a universally legal cutting edge. This is just over 1.5 inches. The most restrictive area I know of is Massachusetts, and they have a 2.5 inch blade limit. So this is more than legal if they measure cutting edge. And even if they measure the blade at the apex of the finger choil there, it's still just under or right at 2 inches. So I can't think of a single place that I've ever heard of where this is going to be illegal to carry. As long as you can carry a cutting tool, you can carry the Sweeney. But even though it's got a small blade, it has a full-size handle. Overall length is 5.5 inches. So even for someone like me, it works great. I can carry a legal tool everywhere without the headache, and it actually works in my ogre hands. That is such a great thing. When I went to Massachusetts, I really struggled to find a knife that fit the 2.5 inch blade limit, and I ended up going with a tiny little M-Tech fixed blade. What wasn't bad, but I could only get a 2.5 finger grip on it, and I absolutely hated using it. I really wish I had had this back then, and when I go back, I'm definitely bringing this with me. Now, to compare it to some knives, just to show you how tiny it is, since hand size can be subjective, here is a 91mm Victorinox. I actually think these would make a great pair. Use the multi-tools on this, but if you're worried about the fragile, very thin blades on the Victorinox, you could use the Glidr Co. Here is a Rat 2, which makes it look like a Rat 1 compared to the Sweeney. Here is an Azula 2, which makes the Sweeney look like a sharpened toothpick. And what I think is going to be a great comparison is my CRKT Spew. The Minimalist line is probably one of the most loved of the neck knives out there, but it still has a lot of the issues we think of when we think of neck knives. It's very thin, very flimsy, and if I bring in something for contrast here, back of my Dickinson Trading Post, we can look at the tips. Even though the CRKT is the bigger knife, its tip is so much less stable. The Glidr Co. has a very similar blade stock, but because it has that Tonto style tip, it has a much better tip, much stronger tip for digging out and fleshing tasks than this guy. It's really only good for slicing with the Spew. Piercing it can do, but you risk busting or bending that tips clean off, whereas the Glidr Co. can handle that. So it's really, really cool to see something that's lightweight like the Spew and other minimalist knives. It's something that has a much better steel with S35VN versus D2, and this is a special edition. And you're really not paying that much more for something made in Australia versus made, I believe, in like Taiwan or something like that. This is around $40 versus $89, I believe, at Chicago Knife Works or Atlantic Knife. You're getting a more capable blade in a more compact package from a more ethical country with a far better steel. I don't know why you'd want to go with a minimalist over this, because handle length wise, it's actually got a little bit more. So you're getting something that can handle those light duty EDC tasks just so much better, so much safer, and even more legal because it has that legal friendly blade versus this, which might even be too long for some places. So that's just really cool. I think it's a great little knife. High quality steel, high quality fit and finish. It does come skeletonized, so you can throw on paracord for added grip. I've done normal paracord, I've done gutted paracord like this, and I've done microcord. I think that the gutted paracord is best because it allows you to have a lot of options that you might not get with microcord, and it doesn't add a lot of thickness like microcord. So you're getting that great traction, great customizability, but it's more comfortable in the hand than microcord, and gutted paracord just adds a little too much thickness and it gets kind of weird. Now I do want to talk about the Kydex sheath here real quick. It's nice Kydex and it slips in from the top. It doesn't come in from the back. So you go like this and then you click it in. It's a very solid click. There is a little bit of rattle. You can probably hear that, but I can whip this thing and it's not coming out. This is probably the hardest I can whip it in front of the tripod here, but I'm very confident that this isn't going to come out. Though in an emergency, especially if you put nice grippy material here like paracord, you can just zip it out and you've got a okay last very hard last ditch self-defense tool. You can pinch it like so, like that, and pocket it if you're in a dangerous situation and just rake someone in the face with it. Obviously that's not what it's for, and you shouldn't be using knives for that kind of situation. Carry something better than an EDC scalpel. But if I had to use it like that, I know how to use it like that, and I can use it like that, and I can trust that if I go to be that desperate, all my other means have failed, I can probably make do with this guy here. So it's a very cool, universally legal option. Fixes all the problems with most neck knives, that they're too thin, too cheap, not great steels. It's just the perfect light duty knife, and I'm really glad that they made it, because other options are out there like the Amsler scalpels and whatnot, the Hurricane 2.0, but you're paying almost 200, even more than that, sometimes 250, 300 if it's a special version. You can get something like this for under $100 if you search around, and you're getting the same steel, same attention to detail as those other things. It's just not a custom. So it's really, really cool. I highly recommend it for anyone that needs to worry about knife laws and just doesn't want to deal with the headache. I recommend it to any creatives out there that want something better than an X-Acto knife that they can put some of their personality into with customizing the wrap and putting a lanyard or whatever on it. And I've seen a lot of people in an arts and crafts situation as well as textiles that have said, hey, this is really cool. I wish I had this for work. It could be a great ditch knife for that, because with a scalpel or a box cutter, they do have very thin, flimsy blades that you constantly have to replace. This you can just quickly strap up and go back to work with that S35VN. So I do recommend it. I've been carrying it in the neck knife situation, and I also intend to use it outdoors, which is why I like the stainless steel option of it, because I'm going to be using it for taking biological samples and things of that nature, where I do want something a little bit more sturdy than your typical lab scalpel or thin neck knife. So for me, this is great. I think for most people, they're really going to like it. I definitely recommend it for people that are down in New York City or over in the UK, or maybe even more restrictive countries like, say, China. Somehow you're watching my video, right on. This is a good option. So until then, stay safe, stay informed. This is the Glidr Co. Sweeney, an EDC scalpel that is really what I was hoping to see from a quality neck knife type blade. Talk to you in the next one, guys. Toodles.